fans of the hottest entertainment on the planet. I'm Enfuego here, and this is my continued coverage of the Fantasia International Film Festival 2026, the prestigious landmark, just huge milestone for one of the most respected genre festivals in the entire world. Yes, it is their 30th anniversary this year, and I just got done with my screener for a film that had its Fantasia premiere today. I just want to double check if this was a world premiere. I believe it was, yes indeed, and the film is entitled Corpus. Now, so this is from writer-director Corin Evans, and so they actually co-wrote the screenplay as well, and this is an interesting time capsule kind of throwback because of the fact that it takes place in the late 90s, New York City, and just kind of focuses on the art scene, a little bit of like the, the push scene, like with, drugs and things of that nature. But also the kind of, just the queer scene at the time too and everything. And so our lead character, his name is, I just want to make sure that I'm recalling his name correctly. That's right. Okay, so Seo, because of the fact that I kept thinking Vince, and yet Vince is his friend that he has some very obvious romantic intertwinement with from the past, but Vince was a bit on the toxic side to Seo, as their mutual friend Ross says at one particular point in the film. But without spoiling anything, because I don't necessarily want to do that, I have to at least give some context here in the fact that the film opens in 1996. I believe it's June, is it 96 or 97? I'm just going to double check my notes. Yeah, 97. So it opens up June 23rd, 1997 for a single scene. It's a photography scene that is one of the more unsettling things that I've seen in recent memory in a film, and I watch a lot of extreme genre stuff and the horror stuff for either the Horror Show channel or for, just like personal interest, amusement, insight, however you want to classify it. And yeah, it's a incredibly unsettling scene without giving any specifics or anything like that. Then they flash forward 1 year to 1998, and that's when we catch up with Seo. And so he runs into Vince when he's at this particular dance club that, despite the fact that it is, it's like more, that's like full-on dance club, more like kind of rave scenester like sort of spot, which obviously was very, very big and reaching some prominence in the late 90s and everything like that, probably even more so in NYC than here in the deadly desert of Arizona, where I'm doing press for Fantasia virtually. But yeah, it definitely encapsulates, because I was kind of coming of age at that particular time. I was just getting into my teen years in the late 90s and stuff. And so having not been to New York City at the time, but just the attire, some of the vernacular being used, and most definitely the music, the original score that I want to make sure that by Val, spelled with three A's, so Vaal. Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, it has kind of a alternative rock with some edge sort of vibe to it at times, but then there is also some of the dance music that is played and a few other moments where music is kind of crucial. But so Seo's character is a photographer though, but then he is also he is the goddamn I'm the pusher man as well. So he is let immediately into this very prestigious club where there's people who have said out front that they've been waiting in line for hours, and don't you know who I am, like that sort of silliness and feeling of self-importance from those shitheads. But Seo just walks right in. He obviously knows everybody there, and I would imagine everybody knows him too if he's coming in with the magic pixie dust or pills or whatever else it may be, and so that's where he runs into his buddy Ross, and then in turn that's where they see the aforementioned Vince, who you see him through the eyes of Seo early on when he's on the cover of a magazine. Looks like he's like doing some modeling or something. But yes, very obviously he's a rising star. And you can tell that just based on the way that Seo's character doesn't even want to accept a copy of this magazine from dude who obviously knows Seo but also knows Vince, and how his stock is rising and everything. You can tell that there's some friction, there's some resentment even in the interaction with the guy at it's not even a bodega, it's like just a little corner like newsstand or something where he's buying some cigarettes, and there is an amusing interaction between their two characters where he's like, switch to the lights, man, you'll live longer, as if there's any truth to that. But because Seo is chain smoking the whole damn movie, man, and you don't see that as much definitely not in Hollywood movies or anything, but this being an indie and everything, made outside of the studio system in the midst of seeking distribution here at Fantasia. But so when when Vince randomly shows up at this club and, runs into Seo and everything, and you can feel like just the sexual tension and everything between the two of them. He invites him to this get-together with some important industry types, I'm speaking verbatim, but he's like kind of, Vince is begging Seo to go with up on this trip. Now, their mutual friend Ross is also going to, who's kind of like the super sex craze. Like, he's got these two girls at the club, and he's saying he's going to go bang-a-rang with both of them and all this other stuff. That's one thing. This is a very horny movie, most definitely. It takes a little while to actually get to it because it's really, in the first two acts, just a lot of tension awaiting the release, like the whole build-up and everything, so it doesn't blow its load with the quickness or anything of that nature. But so it does take some coercion, but yes, Seo does end up deciding to go along with Vince and then Ross, as I said too. So they're driving to upstate, and they get to this really interesting, like just gorgeous palatial like mansion sort of spot, and there's these three mysterious women there, one of whom we saw in the opening scene from a year before. At least I'm pretty sure that was her. And so there's just an odd vibe about the place. You can definitely tell there's these women want to party though, and Seo decided to go along because he thought this was going to be like a larger sort of get together with tons of people, but no, it's very, very low key, like kickback sort of situation. And after a weird interaction around dinner time that I don't really want to get into any specifics about because I feel like that's kind of walking on the eggshells of spoilers, so to speak. Then they just start partying down, drinking, drugging it up, and then the sexy time sort of stuff. The hormones really start to rage and everything, and the tension is just continuing between Seo and Vince throughout the entirety of this. You can tell Seo really wants it, but Vince is kind of keeping him at arm's length. And Ross even mentions at one point, he's like, dude, that guy is bad for you, man. He really, really is. And so he's only out for himself. And, he's just trying to climb that proverbial, entertainment ladder and everything. So, it is much more so, I would say, until the third act. The third act is where it really kind of pivots into the sort of genre, because it is listed as, LGBTQIA plus, horror. And but I'd say it's more so on like the dramatic thriller side of things. But we do get some additional, at least a little bit of context about some of the stuff that happens in that opening scene that I told you I found so incredibly unsettling and I mean borderline disturbing. So there was a lot to like about this. The score, the acting, just kind of I related to the yearning of Seo, most definitely, in the fact that, it doesn't matter, gay, straight, anywhere in between, what have you. Just that sort of longing for somebody that is like toxic for you, and then get all Britney about it. But I'm addicted to you and know that you're toxic and whatnot. But yeah, so it's definitely a very relatable thing if you are or ever have been like that hopeless romantic, just lovesick sort of type, because he is. And there's also some aspects about just his continued interest in photography and how he used like his camera, and this was a little bit of a predictable sort of aspect, but the camera is used to gain some clues about what is really going on at this isolated place in upstate that they're partying at and whatnot. So unfortunately, when we get in the back half of the movie, most notably the finale, while it does get into some significantly shocking territory, I didn't really... I at least wasn't personally satisfied with how far they went with it, and also with... They're pretty vague about stuff, and that, that was a deliberate decision by, Corin and the co-screenwriter of the film. Then this is written by two women, if I'm not mistaken, and Corin is also the one directing as well. And so it was interesting to get this sort of male queer perspective from this tandem of women, and so that was there's also there's all kinds of things going on in this movie as far as like fluidity of sexuality, I guess you could say, especially with a couple of the female characters in the film too. One in particular, as a matter of fact. And so I don't know. I wasn't as satisfied with when it really did lean into the horror aspects of it. I was significantly more impressed with the acting and the dynamic between Vince and Seo, and that whole will these two guys, like, will they, won't they? You know, can they reconcile? Do they have enough of a, you know, love and attraction, or, you know, just affinity for one another, to use a more broad term? Or is it just not meant to be? There's too many other variables as far as, you know, it being more one-sided, you know, in the case of Seo, or just, I mean, there's a lot of extenuating factors in, you know, this kind of romantic intertwinement between the two of them. That was where I found it significantly more intriguing and engaging in comparison with when it tried to give some sort of payoff for the stuff that is hinted at the beginning of the film. Now there are like you get little clues about, you know, the full nature of kind of this vague way that the film concludes and stuff. And once again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I do think that we had, as far as some of the vibes, some of the forces, you know, potentially at work here, I think that there was some significance to the fact that this is happening right around the summer solstice. You know, both the opening scene and then a year later when things are transpiring with, you know, Ross and Vince and Seo actually going to this property. So I don't know, guys. I guess in the end, while I appreciated it from a filmmaking standpoint, it's a gorgeous place where they shot this at, and you can tell that there is at least some money behind the color correction and between, I mean, great cinematography. The acting from most of the cast is really good. Ross is a little over the top, but I mean, it's the way he's written. So, you know, it is what it is. It's not anything that I think was at the fault of the actor in that particular case. But I don't know, some stuff was just left too vague and unexplained when I feel like it did need a little bit more meat on the bone, because it's one thing to keep it mysterious, it's another thing to just not have it developed very well, in my opinion, and I lean more so towards the latter in this. But there's definitely enough positives about it, you know, most notably from the acting and the score and just the actual filmmaking of itself. But yeah, I had some issues with the script, so that's what it really boils down to in the end. But there's definitely enough merits to, you know, make this a milder recommend, and it is playing an additional time. A lot of the films that I have you know, reviewed on this, they are not doing an encore. This one is, so it premiered on Sunday, which is as of this filming. The review is going to be going up a little late tonight, unfortunately, but it is playing once more Monday the 27th. I believe that is a earlier showtime, if I remember correctly. Well, actually, no, it's midday, so 4:20, a very befitting, you know, time Eastern in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, which is where Fantasia takes place. So yeah, if you're at the festival, you happen to come across this video, and you dig the approach and the subject matter, and you can most definitely, if you can relate, you know, gay, straight, whatever in between, as I said, you know, just that sort of longing and the friction with, you know, maybe it's not meant to be, maybe it's just I'm pursuing something which is against my my better wishes, or, you know, for my mental health, or for, you know, self-preservation, whatever. So everybody, that is my thoughts on Corpus. Once again, it is playing a second time at 4:20 p.m. on Monday the 27th at Fantasia. So I extend the grande gracias. I've been Jaimé En Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You know, I do a little on the tiki-talkies, but it's primarily bigger theater stuff. I did review Her Private Hell, which was the opening night film here, so you can watch a short, reel kind of thing on my tiki-tacky, if I'm going to get all break-free on this and not use the official name for that social destination. But yeah, you guys know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, comment if you did get the chance to see this at the world premiere and you happened upon this review. But yeah, guys, that is going to do it. So until the reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, Cinemigos constant viewers, say thank you. I hope we have been well met, and we share more of this cinema palaver sooner rather than later. So until the next review from day 11, adios.